Captain Elias Rourke adjusted the cuffs of his uniform as he stood in the airlock waiting for the connection to the Shalari diplomatic cruiser to complete. The luminescent panel above the door flashed green, signaling that the seals were secure. On the other side of the reinforced glass, a cluster of Shalari delegates stood patiently, their tall, lithe forms clad in shimmering silver garments. Rourke felt the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. The Shalari were known for their exceptional skill in negotiation, and their biology, specifically their use of pheromones, had reportedly tilted more than one deal in their favor. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and Rourke stepped into the pristine corridor. A cool, floral scent wafted toward him, a subtle but unmistakable reminder of the Shalari's unique approach to diplomacy. He caught sight of Orlina, the chief Shalari envoy, and forced himself to remain composed. Her almond-shaped eyes, which seemed to glow faintly, locked onto him immediately. "Captain Rourke," Orlina greeted, her voice as smooth as the polished walls around them. "It's an honor to meet the human delegate face to face. Your people's reputation precedes you." Rourke inclined his head slightly. "Envoy Orlina, it's a pleasure. I trust the journey here was comfortable." "It was," she replied. "And I hope you found our reception area satisfactory. We've prepared everything to ensure our discussion will be productive." Rourke glanced around. The Shalari vessel was a marvel of design, sleek lines, soft lighting, and a near-silent hum that was almost soothing. However, he knew better than to let appearances distract him. "Your hospitality is appreciated," he said, choosing his words carefully. "Shall we proceed to the negotiation chamber?" Orlina gestured gracefully, leading him down the corridor. As they walked, the scent in the air grew slightly stronger, though it remained pleasant. Rourke knew this was no accident. Shalari pheromones were rumored to influence mood, perception, and even decision-making. It was a subtle form of persuasion that could turn the tide in any negotiation. He clenched his fists briefly, then relaxed them, reminding himself to stay focused. They entered the chamber where a semicircular table awaited. Orlina took her place on one side, flanked by two other Shalari representatives, while Rourke sat opposite them. A few human aides stood by, their expressions carefully neutral. Orlina began the meeting by reviewing the agenda, trade routes, resource allocations, and shared research initiatives. Her words were measured and polite, but Rourke could feel the undercurrent of strategy behind them. Halfway through her presentation, Orlina leaned slightly forward. Her movements were fluid, almost hypnotic, and the air seemed to grow heavier. Rourke realized that her pheromones were being released in greater concentration now. It was like a subtle fog that dulled the edges of his thoughts. He gripped the edge of the table, his mind racing to find a way to counter her silent maneuver. Then he remembered something from a briefing he had read months ago. The Shalari weren't just masters of negotiation, they were curious by nature. They prized information, new experiences, and cultural exchanges. An idea formed in his mind, something unconventional, perhaps even a little ridiculous, but potentially effective. "Envoy Orlina," Rourke interrupted, pulling a small, neatly wrapped package from his pocket. "Before we continue, I'd like to share something from Earth." Orlina tilted her head, intrigued. "A cultural token?" Rourke unwrapped the package, revealing a carefully preserved Earth snack, a granola bar. He broke off a piece and offered it to her. "It's simple, but it's a favorite among my people. I think you might enjoy it." The Shalari aides exchanged surprised glances, clearly unprepared for such an informal gesture. Orlina hesitated, then reached out, her slender fingers accepting the small morsel. She studied it for a moment, then took a delicate bite. Her eyes widened slightly, and a soft, musical laugh escaped her. "This is unexpected," she said, "but quite pleasant." "It's not fancy," Rourke admitted, "but sometimes the simplest things have a way of surprising us." Orlina nodded, her composure returning. "Indeed. Thank you for the gesture, Captain. Perhaps we should discuss our first proposal now." The tension in the room eased. Though Orlina still had the upper hand in many ways, Rourke had managed to shift the dynamic. The negotiations continued with a renewed sense of openness. The Shalari presented their terms and Rourke countered with Earth's perspective. Each point was met with respectful debate, and the session stretched on for hours. As the meeting drew to a close, Orlina stood, signaling that they would reconvene the following day. Rourke rose as well, feeling a cautious optimism that progress was possible. As they exited the chamber, Orlina turned to him. "You're different from what I expected, Captain," she said. "I hear that a lot," Rourke replied with a faint smile. "I'll see you tomorrow." They parted ways, but Rourke couldn't shake the sense that something had changed. The Shalari weren't invincible, they were complex, curious beings. And in that complexity, he saw an opportunity not just for diplomacy, but for understanding. Captain Elias Rourke rubbed the back of his neck as he reviewed the preliminary reports. After the unexpected exchange of snacks during yesterday's talks, he had a feeling the negotiations might take a turn for the better. Still, the Shalari were known for their clever, layered diplomacy. One positive moment wouldn't guarantee smooth sailing. He glanced around the quiet briefing room on the station. Two of his aides sat nearby, poring over tactical data, while Lieutenant Connor Hall, his closest advisor, leaned against the table, tapping a stylus against his hand. "Think we made a dent yesterday?" Hall asked, breaking the silence. His sharp green eyes fixed on Rourke. "A dent, maybe," Rourke replied. "But they're still holding all the leverage. This isn't just a trade agreement. The Shalari are testing how much we're willing to give." Hall pushed off the table and folded his arms. "I don't think they expected you to whip out a granola bar as a counter-tactic." Rourke smirked. "I didn't exactly plan it. I was trying to shake them out of their rhythm. Well, it worked. But what's the next step?" Before Rourke could answer, the comm unit on the table buzzed and the smooth voice of Orlina came through. "Captain Rourke, I wonder if you might join me in our observation lounge. There's something I'd like to discuss before today's session." Rourke exchanged a glance with Hall. "Acknowledged, Envoy Orlina. I'll be there shortly." A few minutes later, Rourke stepped into the Shalari observation lounge. The room was a marvel of design, with a curved, transparent wall offering a stunning view of the nebula surrounding the station. Orlina stood near the window, her silver robes catching the light from the stars outside. "Quite a view," Rourke said as he approached. "It's one of the reasons our diplomats prefer the station," Orlina replied. "The stars remind us of the vastness of what we hope to achieve." Rourke nodded, though his attention was more focused on the Shalari envoy than the scenery. "You said you wanted to discuss something?" "Yes." Orlina turned to face him fully, her gaze steady. "Captain, you've proven yourself different from other human representatives we've encountered. Your methods are unconventional, but they've sparked something unexpected among my delegation." Rourke quirked an eyebrow. "I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a warning." "A compliment," Orlina assured him. "Though I must admit it leaves me with questions. Your actions suggest a kind of," she hesitated, choosing her words carefully, "unpredictability. Tell me, Captain, how does your species approach situations when you lack control or certainty?" Rourke considered the question, then shrugged. "We adapt. Humans tend to find solutions on the fly. Sometimes that means taking risks. Sometimes it means offering a snack when the atmosphere gets tense." Orlina studied him for a long moment as if weighing his response. "Adapting so quickly, it's an intriguing trait." Rourke shifted his stance. "I get the feeling you didn't call me up here just to analyze human behavior. What's really on your mind?" Orlina's expression softened and she stepped closer. "During yesterday's talks, I detected a faint trace of an outside influence, subtle disruptions in our systems, communications slightly out of sync. At first, I dismissed it, but it persisted." "You think someone's interfering with the negotiations?" "I suspect so," Orlina said. "And I'd prefer to address this discreetly. If word spreads, it could compromise everything we're trying to accomplish." Rourke frowned. "Who would want to sabotage these talks?" "There are factions within my people who oppose closer ties with humanity," Orlina admitted. "And from what I understand, your own species isn't entirely united in support of these discussions." Rourke rubbed his chin. "So, you're saying this might not be some external threat? It could be coming from our own sides." "Precisely." Rourke paced to the window, looking out at the stars as he thought. "You want my help finding the source, don't you?" "I do," Orlina said. "If we can present the perpetrators to both our governments, it would strengthen the legitimacy of the summit and prevent future sabotage." Rourke turned to her, his expression resolute. "All right, but if we're doing this, I'm going to need Connor Hall on board. He's not just my advisor, he's one of the sharpest analysts I've got." Orlina inclined her head. "I trust your judgment. Shall we begin immediately?" Back in the briefing room, Rourke filled Hall in on the situation. The lieutenant didn't hesitate. "If there's sabotage going on, we'll find it. Let's start with the comm logs. I'll cross-reference the station's records with the Shalari systems to see if anything looks out of place." Orlina joined them at a side console, her hands moving over the Shalari interface with practiced ease. "I'll grant you access to our encrypted channels. However, we must proceed carefully. Any sign of intrusion from your side will draw suspicion." Rourke nodded. "Understood. Connor, let's focus on patterns, anything that seems off. Unusual transmission spikes, repeated signal delays, data packets that don't match the rest." "On it," Hall said, already pulling up data on his tablet. "You think they're masking the sabotage as routine comm traffic?" "Possibly," Rourke replied. "It's a low-risk way to disrupt the talks without leaving obvious fingerprints." As Hall worked, Rourke turned to Orlina. "Tell me about these factions that might be behind this." What's their motive? Orlina's fingers paused on the console. Some among my people believe humans are too chaotic. They fear that closer ties will lead to instability within our own society. These factions view you as a threat, not an ally. And you don't agree? Orlina looked at him directly. I believe that if we do not engage with humanity, we will stagnate. There is much to learn from your people, Captain. Rourke smiled faintly. That's one thing we agree on. Hall cleared his throat, drawing their attention. I've got something. There's a series of repeating signals on a low-frequency band. It's subtle, but they're timed to coincide with key discussion points from yesterday. Could be a trigger, Rourke said. A signal sent right when it matters most. Can you trace it? Working on it, Hall replied. It's bouncing through a few relay points. Someone wanted to make this hard to follow. Orlina leaned over his shoulder, her luminous eyes narrowing. This relay station, it's not one of ours. It's an auxiliary station built by a third party for maintaining station infrastructure. It shouldn't be connected to the negotiations. Looks like it is now, Hall muttered. Give me a minute, got it. The signal's originating from one of the auxiliary maintenance decks. Rourke straightened. Then we know where to start. Orlina, can you keep this quiet while we investigate? I will alert only my most trusted personnel, she said. Captain, I must caution you, if we confront these saboteurs and fail, the entire summit will be at risk. We won't fail, Rourke said, his voice steady. Connor, gear up. We're going to find whoever's behind this. With Hall at his side, Rourke stepped into the maintenance deck. The hum of the station's machinery filled the air, and dim lights cast long shadows. He glanced at his handheld scanner. It's close. Let's move. They rounded a corner and spotted a console left active, a stream of unfamiliar code scrolling across its screen. A figure stood over it, a tall, shadowy form in Shalari robes. Rourke raised his hand. Stop right there. The figure turned, their almond-shaped eyes narrowing in defiance. Without a word, they pressed a button on a small device in their hand. The console's code shifted and the screen went black. Connor. Rourke barked. Hall lunged forward, tackling the figure before they could escape. The saboteur struggled, but Hall was quick, pinning them against the console. Rourke stepped closer, pulling a small data recorder from his pocket. He slotted it into the console, retrieving what he could before the system locked down completely. The saboteur hissed, their voice sharp. You're making a mistake, human. No, Rourke said firmly. You're the one making a mistake. The summit isn't the problem, you are. Hall tightened his grip on the figure's arm. What do we do with them, sir? We bring them to Orlina, Rourke said. Let's see what she has to say about one of her own trying to undermine the talks. When they returned to the main deck, Orlina was waiting. Her expression darkened when she saw the saboteur, and she stepped forward, her voice cold. Carol, you dare to endanger the summit. Carol, the saboteur sneered. I act for the good of our people. These humans will bring nothing but chaos. And your sabotage would bring us progress? Orlina's tone was sharp. You are dismissed from these negotiations. Guards. As Shalari security personnel arrived to take Carol away, Orlina turned to Rourke. You've earned my gratitude, Captain. I only hope we can repair the damage they've caused. Rourke inclined his head. We'll take it one step at a time. Let's get back to work. Captain Elias Rourke adjusted his uniform collar as he stepped through the heavy doors of the Earth Diplomatic Enclave. Bright sunlight filtered through the station's transparent panels, creating a warm, inviting atmosphere. Earth's cultural delegation had gone all out decorating the enclave, filling it with vibrant murals, sculptures, and a small garden of lush green plants that stood out starkly against the sterile steel walls of the station. The scent of roasting coffee and freshly baked bread filled the air, mingling with soft music that played in the background. It was a distinctly human space, welcoming, expressive, and entirely unpretentious. Standing just ahead, Orlina paused to take in the scene. Her head tilted slightly, her almond-shaped eyes scanning every detail. Despite her usual calm demeanor, Rourke caught the faintest flicker of curiosity on her face. Not what you expected? He asked, walking up beside her. It's different, Orlina said after a moment. I've read about your cultural displays, but seeing them firsthand is something else entirely. The colors, the smells, so vivid. Almost overwhelming. Rourke chuckled. You'll get used to it. Human spaces tend to be a bit chaotic at first glance, but there's a method to the madness. Orlina raised an eyebrow. Chaos with purpose? Interesting. As they moved deeper into the enclave, they passed a mural depicting Earth's diverse landscapes, towering mountains, sprawling forests, bustling cityscapes, and tranquil seas. Orlina paused in front of it, her gaze lingering on the painted waves crashing against the shore. Your world must be beautiful, she said quietly. It has its moments, Rourke replied. But what really makes it special is the people. Our creativity, our ability to adapt and improvise, that's what defines us. Orlina turned to face him, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. You speak with such conviction. It's compelling. Before Rourke could respond, a nearby vendor called out, holding up a tray of fresh pastries. Hey, Captain. Care to introduce your friend to a real Earth treat? Rourke grinned. Orlina, ever tried a croissant? Oh, what? She asked, her brow furrowing. Come on, you'll like it. He led her over to the vendor, who handed them 2 golden, flaky pastries. Orlina inspected the croissant cautiously. This is food. Trust me, it's worth it, Rourke said, taking a bite of his own. He gestured for her to do the same. She hesitated, then took a small bite. Her eyes widened in surprise, and she quickly took another bite. It's delightful, she admitted. Light, yet rich. And that hint of sweetness unexpected. See? Told you. Earth cuisine is full of surprises. They continued through the enclave, Rourke pointing out various displays and explaining the significance of each. A row of sculptures represented historical figures from ancient philosophers to modern scientists. Orlina listened intently as Rourke recounted their contributions, occasionally asking pointed questions that revealed her keen interest. What about this one? She asked, stopping in front of a statue of a man holding a torch. Why is he depicted with light? That's Prometheus, Rourke explained. In Greek mythology, he brought fire to humanity. It's a symbol of progress, of pushing boundaries and striving for something greater. Orlina tilted her head, considering his words. Your stories seem to celebrate taking risks, even defying convention. It's not how my people approach things. How do the Shulari approach it? Rourke asked, genuinely curious. We value harmony and precision, Orlina said. Every action is carefully measured, every decision weighed. Risk is minimized whenever possible. It's not that we lack ambition, but we channel it differently. Rourke nodded thoughtfully. Sounds efficient, but maybe a bit rigid. I think that's why our two peoples have so much to learn from each other. You could teach us to be more thoughtful, and we might show you how to embrace the unexpected. Their conversation continued as they wandered through the enclave, eventually arriving at a small auditorium where a jazz trio was performing. The music was lively yet soulful, each musician improvising in perfect harmony with the others. Orlina's expression softened as she listened, her usual composed demeanor giving way to quiet wonder. It's unpredictable, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Yet it all fits together somehow. That's jazz for you, Rourke said, leaning against the wall. It's about adapting on the spot, playing off each other's energy. No two performances are ever the same. Orlina glanced at him, her gaze lingering. It's like your people, then, constantly changing, yet finding a way to create something meaningful. Rourke felt a warmth in her words, a subtle shift in how she regarded him. He stood up straight, his eyes meeting hers. You could say that. As the performance ended, the small audience erupted in applause. As enclave, not just to show off but to share, to let others experience what makes us who we are. Orlina smiled faintly. And you've done an excellent job, Captain. I can't say I understand everything yet, but I can see why your people are so intriguing. Rourke chuckled. That's a start. The two stood there for a moment, the bustling enclave around them fading into the background. It wasn't just about the negotiations anymore. This cultural exchange had opened a door to something more personal, something neither of them had expected. As the day wound down, Rourke walked Orlina back to her delegation's quarters. The hallways were quieter now, the station's artificial lights dimmed to simulate evening. When they reached the entrance, Orlina turned to him. Thank you for showing me all of this, Captain. It's given me much to think about. Anytime, Rourke said, his tone softer than usual. If you ever want to explore more, you know where to find me. Orlina hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer. I may take you up on that. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment, the weight of their roles as diplomats seemed to dissolve. It wasn't about treaties or alliances. It was about two individuals from vastly different worlds finding common ground. Good night, Captain, Orlina said, her voice almost tender. Good night, Rourke replied. As she disappeared through the door, Rourke stood there for a moment, replaying the day in his mind. The exchange had gone far beyond what he had anticipated. He didn't know exactly what lay ahead, but he felt certain of one thing. This was only the beginning. Elias Rourke stood on the observation deck of the Shalari vessel, his eyes fixed on the glowing world below. The Shalari homeworld looked like a jewel in the darkness, its surface crisscrossed by rivers of light and shimmering energy fields. The atmosphere refracted the planet's twin moons, casting soft hues of lavender and pale blue across the landscape. Orlina approached quietly, her footsteps barely audible on the polished floor. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Rourke turned to her. "It is. I've seen pictures, but they don't do it justice." She moved beside him, her gaze lingering on the planet. "This is my first time back in over a year. I'd forgotten how much I missed it." "Why so long?" Rourke asked. "Diplomatic duties keep me away," Orlina said. "My role requires constant travel, but I'm glad we have a moment here before the delegation convenes." Rourke leaned on the railing, watching her out of the corner of his eye. "What's the festival you mentioned earlier? You called it Talna?" She nodded. "Talna is one of our oldest traditions. It's a time for reflection, for renewing bonds with those we care about. Families, friends, even colleagues come together to share their stories and strengthen their connections." He tilted his head. "Sounds peaceful." "It is," Orlina said. "Or at least it should be. This year's Talna will be different." "Because of the negotiations?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. There are those who see my interactions with humanity as a betrayal of our heritage. They believe our traditions will be diluted if we grow too close to your people." Rourke straightened, his tone firm. "If they're anything like you, I don't think that'll happen. You've got a strong sense of identity. I can't imagine anything changing that." Orlina smiled faintly. "You're kind to say that, but it's not so simple. Our ways have remained constant for generations. Change, even if it's necessary, is unsettling." "Then maybe the festival is a good opportunity," Rourke suggested. "Show them what we're really like. Maybe some of that uncertainty will fade." Orlina gave him a curious look. "You speak as though you'll be attending." Rourke met her gaze. "Would you let me?" Her expression softened. "If you truly wish to experience Talna, I'd be honored to have you as my guest." Hours later, Rourke found himself at ground level, surrounded by the Shalari's most sacred forest. The trees were unlike anything he'd ever seen, towering spires of silver bark that glowed faintly from within. Their leaves shimmered with bioluminescent hues, shifting in gentle waves as the breeze passed through. The festival had just begun, and groups of Shalari moved gracefully among the trees, exchanging small tokens and softly singing an unfamiliar melody. Rourke stood beside Orlina, who wore an ornate silver and violet robe, its patterns catching the faint light of the forest. She handed him a small, delicately carved charm made of a translucent crystal. "What's this?" he asked. "A token of trust," she said. "During Talna, it's customary to exchange these as a sign of mutual respect and understanding." Rourke turned the charm over in his hand, the crystal catching the faint blue glow from the trees. "It's beautiful." Orlina offered him a faint smile. "You're supposed to give me one in return." He blinked, then patted his pockets. I didn't exactly come prepared." She laughed softly, the sound blending with the forest's gentle hum. "No matter. The gesture is what counts." They walked together through the gathering, the air filled with a quiet joy that seemed to emanate from the very trees. Rourke listened as Orlina explained the significance of each ritual, lighting small floating lanterns, sharing traditional songs, and recounting personal stories under the canopy of shimmering leaves. At one point, Orlina paused near a cluster of glowing flowers. She plucked one and handed it to Rourke. "In our culture, giving a Kaisayan blossom is a sign of friendship. It's also said to bring clarity to the one who receives it." Rourke accepted the flower, his fingers brushing against hers. The contact was brief, but it left a lingering warmth. "Then I'll keep it safe," he said, tucking the blossom carefully into his pocket. As the evening went on, they found themselves at the heart of the forest, where a large gathering of Shalari formed a circle. A single figure stepped forward, a Shalari elder, their robes shimmering gold. The elder spoke in a melodic language Rourke couldn't understand, but the tone was soothing, almost hypnotic. "What's he saying?" Rourke asked in a whisper. Orlina leaned close to him, her voice low. "He's recounting the first Talna, a time when our people faced great uncertainty. The elders of that time gathered here, under these trees, to find strength in their unity." Rourke nodded, captivated by the scene. The elder's voice seemed to resonate through the forest, and the light from the trees pulsed gently in time with the words. When the elder finished, the circle dispersed and the attendees resumed mingling. Orlina turned to Rourke. "Shall we walk a bit further? There's a place I'd like to show you." He gestured for her to lead the way. They moved away from the main gathering, deeper into the forest. The sounds of the festival grew faint, replaced by the quiet rustle of leaves and the soft hum of the trees. Orlina guided him to a small clearing where the bioluminescent glow was particularly vibrant. The light reflected off a still pool at the clearing's center, casting shimmering patterns across the ground. "This is one of my favorite places," she said. "Whenever I feel overwhelmed, I come here to think. The stillness helps me find clarity." Rourke crouched near the pool, dipping a hand into the cool water. The surface rippled, distorting the glowing patterns. "It's incredible. I can see why you'd come here." Orlina joined him, sitting gracefully on a nearby stone. She watched the ripples fade, her expression thoughtful. "You've given me much to consider, Captain. I never imagined that a human perspective would resonate so strongly with me." "I didn't expect to find myself here either," Rourke admitted. "But I'm glad I came." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the soft glow of the forest surrounding them. Rourke glanced at Orlina, noticing the way the light played off her features. There was a gentleness to her he hadn't seen before. "Orlina," he began, hesitating for a moment. "Do you think there's a chance for real understanding between our people? Not just on a diplomatic level, but on a personal level?" She turned to him, her almond-shaped eyes meeting his. "If you had asked me that before, I might have said no. But now, I believe it's possible." Rourke reached into his pocket, pulling out the Kaasan blossom she had given him earlier. He held it out to her. "Then consider this my token of trust." Her lips curved into a soft smile as she accepted the flower. "And I gladly accept." As the festival continued in the distance, they remained in the clearing, their shared understanding growing stronger with each passing moment. The future might still be uncertain, but here, under the glowing trees of the Shalari forest, they had found a connection that transcended words. The morning after the festival, Elias Rourke stood by the main viewport on the Shalari cruiser, gazing at the endless stars. His mind was still wrapped around the events of the night before, the exchange of tokens, the glowing forest, and the quiet moments he'd shared with Orlina. He was far from Earth, surrounded by a culture so different from his own, yet he felt something deeply familiar in the connection they'd begun to form. He was lost in thought when the door to the observation lounge slid open behind him. The faint rustle of robes told him who it was before she spoke. "You're up early, Captain," Orlina said, her voice gentle. "Couldn't sleep?" Rourke turned, smiling faintly. "Something like that. I guess I've been running through everything in my head, trying to figure out what it all means." Orlina approached, her hands folded neatly in front of her. "And have you come to any conclusions?" "I'm not sure," Rourke admitted. "But I keep coming back to one thing, this bridge we're building. I don't know where it leads yet, but I think it's worth following." Orlina's eyes softened and she moved to stand beside him, looking out at the stars. "We Shalari don't often change direction. It's not in our nature. Yet, after last night, I find myself reconsidering certain things." "Like what?" She hesitated. "My people's view of humanity. Our assumptions about your unpredictability, she paused, searching for the right word. "Improvisational nature. Perhaps we've been too quick to judge." Rourke tilted his head. "I think that goes both ways. Humans haven't exactly been the best at understanding you either. Maybe we've been so focused on what makes us different that we've missed all the ways we could complement each other." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime from the room's comm panel. Orlina crossed to it, touching the screen to accept the message. A Shalari aide appeared on the display, bowing slightly. "Envoy Orlina, Captain Rourke," the aide said. "The final negotiation session will begin shortly. Both delegations are assembling in the main chamber." "Understood," Orlina replied. The screen went dark and she turned back to Rourke. "Are you ready for this?" He took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." The main chamber was a sight to behold. Rows of floating panels displayed star charts, trade data, and research agreements, all presented in the elegant, minimalist style the Shalari favored. The human delegation sat on one side of the circular table while the Shalari delegates sat on the other. Orlina and Rourke took their places at the center. As the session began, both sides presented their final proposals. The discussions were calm and measured, with each delegation carefully outlining their terms. It was a stark contrast to the tension that had defined earlier meetings. After several hours of negotiation, the Shalari elder who presided over the talks spoke up. "It seems we have reached the point of final deliberation. Envoy Orlina, Captain Rourke, As the lead representatives, you may present your closing statements. Orlina nodded and rose gracefully. Members of the delegation, I have spent these last weeks working closely with Captain Rourke and his team. In that time, I have come to understand that humanity, while different from us in many ways, offers unique perspectives and ideas that can enrich both our peoples. It is my belief that by moving forward with this agreement, we take the first step toward a partnership that benefits all. Rourke followed her lead, standing and addressing the chamber. I'll keep this simple. I came here thinking we'd be convincing the Shalari why they should work with us. Instead, I found myself learning just as much, if not more, about what you bring to the table. These talks have shown me that there's more common ground between us than I ever imagined. That's why I'm confident this agreement is the right move for both sides. The elder nodded approvingly. Very well. The final vote will proceed. As the votes were cast and the results displayed, Rourke felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. The agreement passed with a strong majority, and applause echoed through the chamber. He turned to Orlina, who met his gaze with a rare, genuine smile. We did it, she said softly. He smiled back. We did. Later, as the delegations began to disband, Rourke found Orlina near the observation deck's entrance. She was standing by herself, watching the stars once more. He approached, clearing his throat lightly to announce his presence. Thinking about what's next? He asked. She turned to him, her expression thoughtful. In a way, this agreement is just the beginning. There's still so much to be done. True, Rourke said, leaning on the railing beside her. But it's a good start. Orlina tilted her head, considering his words. A start, yes. But how do we ensure it lasts? Rourke looked at her, his expression serious. By keeping this, he gestured between them, alive, the understanding we've built here. If we can keep that going, I think the rest will fall into place. Her eyes searched his face, as if weighing the sincerity in his words. You really believe that, don't you? I do. For a moment, they stood in silence, the stars stretching out before them. Then Orlina spoke again, her voice quiet. Captain, if you ever find yourself back in Shalari space, I hope you'll visit. Rourke smiled. You can count on it. Orlina reached out, placing a hand on his arm. The gesture was subtle, yet it carried a depth of meaning he couldn't ignore. He placed his hand over hers, holding her gaze. In that instant, words seemed unnecessary. As the station prepared to send both delegations back to their respective territories, Rourke and Orlina remained by the viewport, silent but connected. The stars had seen countless alliances come and go, countless moments of trust and understanding. But for Rourke, this one felt different, genuine, enduring, and full of possibility. And perhaps in the vastness of the universe, that was enough.